I still remember the exact moment she called me boring. We were sitting on the creaky couch in her small, sunlit apartment, and I had just finished telling her about my weekend, reading a book, organizing my vinyl collection, and cooking a homemade pasta for myself. She laughed, a little too sharply, and said it like it was obvious. "You're just boring," she said, and the words hit me harder than I expected. Her name was Emily, and she was everything I wasn't: spontaneous, loud, magnetic. People gravitated toward her like moths to a flame. And me? I'd always been in the background, the guy people liked enough, but never the one they noticed first. For a second, I wondered if maybe she was right. Maybe my life was just a series of quiet, predictable routines. But there was something about Emily that made it impossible to just walk away. Even after that moment, when she turned her head and giggled at some random joke I didn't understand, I couldn't stop looking at her. She had this way of pulling people into her orbit without even trying, and somehow, despite being called boring, I felt drawn to her gravity. I didn't realize it then, but this was the start of something I could never have anticipated. Because the very next day, everything shifted. Her sister, Lily, invited me over for what I thought was a casual coffee. Lily was quieter than Emily, calmer, more thoughtful. She had this soft smile that felt like she could see right through you. I didn't know why, but I felt nervous walking into her apartment. Maybe it was the way Emily's words still echoed in my head. Maybe it was that tiny hope I couldn't let go of. When Lily opened the door, she looked at me for a long moment, longer than anyone had ever looked at me before, and then, almost casually, said something that stopped my heart. "You know," she said, "Emily's wrong. You're the love of her life." I blinked, not sure I'd heard her correctly. Maybe she was joking. Maybe I misheard. But the way she said it, so quietly, yet so certain, it felt like the kind of truth you can't argue with. I wanted to laugh, or deny it, or change the subject. Instead, I just stood there, frozen, feeling like the floor beneath me had vanished. How could this be possible? How could someone like me, the quiet, boring guy, be the one that someone like Emily would truly love? And yet, as Lily smiled knowingly and stepped aside to let me in, I realized that maybe, just maybe, my life was about to take a turn I never saw coming. I had no idea that what started as a simple comment, a tiny jab, would lead me into a tangled web of secrets, emotions, and choices that could change everything. By the time I stepped into that apartment, I had no idea that the next few days would make me question everything I thought I knew about love, about myself, and about Emily. Emily and I had known each other for a few years, though I wouldn't exactly call us friends. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party, the kind where everyone is loud, smiling, and pretending they're having the time of their lives. Emily stood out immediately, bright, confident, full of laughter that drew people toward her. I, on the other hand, preferred corners and quiet conversations. We spoke that night, exchanged numbers, but it was never anything serious. I'd always admired her from a distance, content to watch her sparkle while I stayed in the background. She didn't even notice how much I cared, or at least, I thought she didn't. Then came that moment on her couch, the boring comment, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger exactly, more like a spark of determination, or maybe curiosity. Why did she see me as boring? Was it really true? Lily, Emily's sister, had always been different. She wasn't flashy or loud. She listened. She asked questions that made you think, and she had this quiet wisdom that made her seem older than her 28 years. While Emily thrived in the spotlight, Lily seemed to understand what people needed without them saying a word. I never expected her to notice me at all. And yet, the first time she told me, so calmly, that Emily saw me as the love of her life, I felt the ground shift beneath me. It made me question everything. How could someone who laughed at me, dismissed me, even teased me, secretly hold feelings that ran deeper than I could imagine? What had I been missing all this time? Or maybe I had been looking, but in all the wrong places. Over the next few days, my world felt slightly off balance. I'd text Emily casually, trying to ignore the truth that Lily had revealed. She responded as usual, flirty, teasing, effortlessly captivating. But beneath her playful messages, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more she wasn't saying. Every glance, every laugh, suddenly felt like a puzzle I was desperate to solve. And then there were the subtle hints from Lily, Quick comments about Emily's moods, small observations that made me wonder if she was trying to guide me without actually telling me the whole truth. I didn't know whether to trust her or if I was reading too much into things. I found myself replaying every interaction I'd ever had with Emily. Every joke, every eye contact, every moment where I felt invisible. It suddenly carried a weight I hadn't noticed before. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe there was a side of Emily I had never seen. A side that only Lily seemed to understand. But just as I started to feel like I was getting closer to understanding what was really happening, a new feeling crept in, an unease I couldn't shake. If Emily truly felt this way about me, why had she never said it herself? And more importantly, why did it take her sister to reveal it? The questions began piling up, and I realized I was standing on the edge of something I didn't fully understand. Something that could change not just my view of Emily, but the way I saw myself. Little did I know, the answer to all of this wouldn't be simple, and it was about to come in a way I could never anticipate. Over the next week, I found myself walking a tightrope I didn't even know existed. Emily was still the same, flirty, unpredictable, a whirlwind of energy, but now, every word she said felt loaded with meaning. I caught myself overanalyzing little things, the way she lingered on my texts, the slight hesitation in her voice when she laughed, the accidental brushes of her hand against mine. It was confusing, it was thrilling, and it terrified me. Then there was Lily, quietly observing from the sidelines, dropping cryptic comments that made my heart race and my mind spin. "She's thinking about you," Lily would say casually, as if it were nothing, and yet it felt like the biggest revelation I'd ever heard. How could I process this? Emily had always dismissed me before. She had called me boring. And now, according to Lily, I was the one she truly cared about. I wanted to confront Emily directly, to ask her to tell me the truth, but every time I opened my mouth, the words stuck. Fear, confusion, and an unexpected hope held me back. What if Lily was wrong? What if I had misread everything, and Emily didn't feel the same way at all? One night, we ended up at a small house party, the kind with soft music, scattered groups of people, and dim lights that made everything feel a little more intimate. Emily was there, glowing as usual, laughing with friends, but every now and then, she'd glance my way. I could feel her eyes on me, and it was as if the room had shrunk until it was just the two of us. I wanted to talk to her, to finally break through whatever invisible wall was keeping us apart, but every step toward her felt heavier than the last. I could see Lily in the corner, watching me, her eyes holding a secret I couldn't quite decipher. It was almost comforting and unnerving at the same time. By the end of the night, I felt torn in every direction. Emily had smiled at me in a way that made my chest tighten. Lily had whispered something ambiguous that I couldn't forget, and I realized I had no idea what I was actually supposed to do. And just when I thought I might finally get a clue, Emily disappeared from the room without a word, leaving me staring at the empty space where she had been, and a single question burning in my mind. If she really did feel the way Lily said she did, why wouldn't she say it herself? The answer wasn't coming easily, and I had a sinking feeling that when it did, it would change everything. The days that followed felt like walking through a storm I couldn't escape. Every interaction with Emily was like stepping on fragile glass. One wrong move, and everything could shatter. She was warm one moment, distant the next, her words playful, but her eyes sometimes guarded. I was constantly trying to read her, to decode her feelings, but it was exhausting. And then there was Lily, always nearby, calm but with this uncanny sense of knowing more than she let on. One afternoon, Lily invited me to help her with something at her apartment. I hesitated, wondering if it was a trap or a test, but something inside me pushed me to go. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed a photograph on her wall. Emily, smiling at me, a picture I didn't remember being taken. It was ordinary, yet seeing it like that made my heart skip. Lily noticed my glance and didn't comment, just let me linger in that mix of warmth and tension. "Why are you doing this?" I finally asked, unable to keep it in. "Why are you telling me these things about Emily?" Lily's eyes softened, and she said, almost whispering, "Because someone needs to. You're blind to what's right in front of you." Her words should have comforted me, but instead they made me feel more trapped. Blind, right in front of me. I realized I'd been so focused on Emily's teasing, her jokes, her rejection, that I hadn't seen the way she truly looked at me when she thought I wasn't noticing. And now, with Lily hinting at truths I couldn't fully grasp, I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something I didn't understand, and maybe wasn't ready for. Later that evening, Emily called me. Her voice was soft, hesitant, a stark contrast to her usual confident tone. "Hey, can you come over?" she said. And for a moment, I thought my heart might stop. The invitation sounded innocent, but the tension between us had grown so thick, I couldn't tell if this was a step forward or a trap. When I arrived, the apartment was dimly lit, shadows stretching across the walls. Emily was there, sitting on the edge of the couch, her hands twisting in her lap. She looked different, vulnerable, real. My mind raced, trying to figure out what was going on. Was this finally the moment she'd tell me what Lily said? Or was it something else entirely? We talked, but carefully, both of us circling the truth without ever touching it. Every glance, every pause, every half-smile was loaded with tension. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap, but my instincts screamed to wait, to let her come to me. And then, just as I thought I might finally understand her, she stood up abruptly and walked toward the window. Outside, the city lights shimmered, but inside, the silence was deafening. She didn't speak, but the look she gave me, part fear, part longing, part something I couldn't name, was enough to send my heart into overdrive. I realized then that the truth wasn't coming easily. And as I stood there, frozen, waiting for her next move, a feeling hit me stronger than anything I'd felt before. Whatever Emily was about to reveal, it would change everything I thought I knew about her, about us, and about myself. Just as I thought I might finally understand Emily, she turned toward me with eyes wide, almost panicked. I can't tell you this," she whispered, voice trembling. My heart sank. Whatever it wasn't what I expected. Before I could respond, Lily appeared behind her, calm, but with that same knowing gaze. "You deserve to know the truth," she said quietly, but there was an edge to her voice, a warning I couldn't ignore. Emily took a shaky breath, and then everything shifted. "I wasn't the one who called you boring," she admitted, almost in a whisper. "It was my ex. He wanted me to push you away, to make you think I wasn't interested." I froze. My mind spun. All this time, the teasing, the dismissals, the moments that felt like rejection, it hadn't been Emily at all. And then Lily dropped the final bomb. "And there's more," she said, her voice low. "He's been watching you both. He doesn't want you together. He'll do anything to stop it." Suddenly, what I thought was simple confusion became a dangerous game. Someone was actively trying to manipulate us. And the next move? I had no idea what it would be, or who would survive it. The next few days felt like walking through a fog of tension. Emily avoided me, but not completely. Our paths crossed in quiet hallways, fleeting glances, and hurried texts filled with half-truths. Every time I saw her, my chest tightened. I couldn't ignore what Lily had said. Someone was trying to sabotage us. But what could I do? How could I protect the fragile connection we hadn't even fully formed? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Emily and insisted we meet, alone, no distractions. She agreed, her voice soft, almost resigned. When I arrived at her apartment, the air was thick with anticipation. She was waiting, and this time, she didn't avert her eyes. "I need to tell you everything," she said, stepping closer. "About me, about what happened." Her voice wavered, but there was courage in it. She explained how her ex had manipulated her, twisted every word, every action to make it seem like she didn't care. How she had been terrified to show her feelings because she feared he would hurt me if she did. Every word cut through the fear and doubt I'd carried, replacing it with a raw, undeniable truth. Emily had loved me all along. I reached for her hand, trembling, and she didn't pull away. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Lily appeared at the doorway, face pale, voice urgent. "He's here," she whispered. "He knows we're meeting. We don't have much time." Panic shot through me. Emily grabbed my arm, eyes wide. "We need to leave. Now." We ran, hearts pounding, the city streets blurring around us. Every shadow seemed like a threat, every passing car a potential trap. And just when we thought we'd escaped, Emily stopped abruptly, grabbing my shoulders. "Wait," she said, her voice shaking. "There's something else, something you need to know before we go any further." Her words froze me in place. I'd thought the worst was behind us, that the path forward was clear. But now, standing in the darkened street, I realized the danger wasn't over. And the revelation she was about to share would change everything I thought I knew about Emily, about her past, and about us. Emily took a deep breath, gripping my hands tightly. Her eyes searched mine as if weighing how much she could trust me with the truth. The person who's been trying to control my life, it's not just my ex, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. It's my family, too. They didn't want me with anyone who wasn't perfect. Someone like you. I felt the weight of her words sink in. For years, I had believed my life was simple, predictable. But here I was, standing in the middle of a storm I hadn't asked for, realizing that love, real love, was rarely simple. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes terrifying. And yet, in that moment, it was also real. Lily stepped closer, giving me a small, reassuring smile. We've been protecting her, she said quietly. And now, it's time for you both to protect yourselves. We made a plan. Not a grand one. Not one filled with drama or heroic gestures. Just a plan to reclaim control over our lives. To create boundaries, to trust each other, and to step forward together, no matter what threats lingered in the shadows. That night, after everything had settled just enough for us to breathe, Emily and I sat together on her balcony. The city stretched below, lights flickering like distant stars, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a quiet peace. We didn't need to speak. The silence itself was enough, a shared understanding, a promise that we would face the world together. Emily turned to me, her eyes soft but determined. I know I've been confusing, maybe even unfair, she said. But I want you to know, you were never boring. You've always been the one I needed, even if I didn't understand it before. I smiled, feeling the tension in my chest finally release. I guess sometimes it takes the right person, and maybe a little chaos, to see what's been right in front of you all along, I said. We laughed softly, the sound